The engines on Sir Topham Hatt's railway all have favorite places on the island of Sodor. Emily likes black lung. James likes the washdown. And Henry likes the forest. In fact, Henry loves almost every part of Sodor, and he wouldn't want to be anywhere else. He likes every part of it. From the fields filled with flowers to the yellow sandy beaches. One day, Henry pulled into Wellsworth Station. Diesel was there in the siding. He had a long train of scrap. Henry shuddered as he looked at the scrapped engine parts. "What's the matter, Henry?" Diesel grinned devilishly. "Afraid you might end up like these old engines?" "Nonsense," huffed Henry. He didn't like being teased. Diesel snickered and oiled slowly out of the station. Henry was upset, and he spoke to his driver. "Never mind what Diesel says, Henry," said his driver soothingly. "He's just heated up in the radiator. Tell you what, how about we go in the forest and rest for a few?" Henry smiled. His driver knew just how much he loved the forest. Soon Henry arrived at the forest, and he stopped near a signal box, whistling for the points to be changed to the sidings. Edward stopped on the other line. He was taking a train of oil tankers to Tidmouth Bay. "What's the matter, Henry?" Edward asked. "You look glum." Henry knew Edward was his friend, so he told Edward what Diesel had said. Take no notice," puffed Edward wisely. "Diesel may sound rude, but I'm sure he doesn't mean any harm, really." Henry smiled broadly. He knew Edward was right. Henry pulled into a siding in the forest. He rested his pistons and let his boiler cool down. "This is just what I needed, a break with nature." Henry sighed contently. Soon he felt something cold land on his footplate. "Oh my!" Henry gasped as he looked up. It had begun to rain heavily. "Oh, rusty rail joints!" exclaimed his driver. "We better get going, Henry." On the way back to Tidmouth Sheds, the weather got even worse. Wind and rain battled against Henry. His wheels slipped and his axles were aching. Come on, he panted breathlessly. "This is terrible." But there was worse to come. Before his driver could check him, the rain picked up and lashed down heavier and heavier, and suddenly, with a shrieking crack, something snapped and crashed Henry's buffer beam out of place. His crew inspected the damage. Diesel was in front of him with a train of cattle wagons. He looked very sad. "I'm sorry, Henry," Diesel rattled. "I couldn't see in front of my buffers because of that rain." Henry was still annoyed with Diesel from earlier, but he could see that he needed his help, and he needed Diesel's. "Never mind, Diesel," said Henry at last. "The rain is trouble for all of us." Diesel smiled slightly. "Now come on, let's get you home." And so, buffer to buffer, Diesel and Henry headed back to Tidmouth. When they arrived, Sir Topham Hatt was waiting for them. "I'm glad to see you are both all right. This storm is causing all sorts of confusion and delay." Then Henry got a terrible feeling in his smokebox. "The forest!" he cried. "The storm will destroy it!" And sadly, Henry was right. For by morning, the forest was in a terrible state. Branches lay everywhere. The once peaceful forest was now a gloomy wasteland. Sir Topham Hatt had arrived at Tidmouth Sheds to speak to the other engines. "I've sent Donald and Douglas to the forage to clear the damage," he boomed. "I need you, Henry, to help them." With that, Sir Topham Hatt strode sternly away. Henry was upset about the forest, as he set off as quickly as possible. When he arrived at the forest, it was a terrible mess. Branches and bushes were destroyed, and trees were on their sides. "Oh dear," puffed Henry sadly. "What will happen to all the animals that live here?" He wished. Just then Stepney arrived with the works trains and some vans of supplies. "Hello, Henry," Stepney chuffed. "I am sorry about the forest, but don't worry, we'll get this sorted out in no time at all." So Stepney moved the train into place, and workmen started to chop away at the broken branches, and soon the line was clear. Diesel was taking vans of equipment to the sawmill when he saw Henry pass with flat cars of logs. He went to tease him, but he remembered that he had helped him in the storm and reconsidered. Whatever could have happened to make him so upset, he pondered. He soon saw why as he passed through the forest. It was barren and empty. Only a few flowers remained. "Oh my, this must be from the storm," Diesel said, looking at the disaster. "There must be something I can do to help." "Now quiet down, you," Stepney chuffed crossly. "You've done your part by bringing the equipment, now head off back to the scrapyard." Douglas snapped, but Diesel didn't listen. He went to see Sir Topham Hatt. Diesel got a chance to speak to him that evening at Lower Knapford Station. "Excuse me, Sir Topham Hatt, sir," Diesel wailed nervously. "Oh, hello, Diesel," Sir Topham Hatt said warmly. "Whatever is the matter?" "It's, Henry, sir. The storm did a lot of damage, and when I delivered the machinery to the sawmill, I saw how it hurt the forest. I know it's a very special place to him, and I want to make things better." "Well, that's unexpected, but it's very kind of you, Diesel. I have a shipment arriving tomorrow, but I've had no engine for the job. I'll send you to the harbor first thing tomorrow." Sir Topham Hatt smiled. Diesel, happy to help, purred away. The next morning, Diesel arrived at the harbor and collected the train of trucks full of young trees, all ready to be planted. "This is splendid. The forest will look much better after this. I know Henry will be happy," Diesel said and oiled away. When Henry returned to the forest that evening, he was surprised. New trees had been planted, all the fallen branches were cleared, and flowers were blossoming. "Well, what do you think?" Diesel asked as he buffered up to the empty trucks. "Oh, Diesel," Henry spluttered. "You helped out the forest." "No, well, you did save me from that storm. It's only right that I repay the favor. Besides, we're all engines, and engines can always have a change of heart, you know." "Well, thank you, Diesel. I guess you're not a bad engine after all," Henry smiled. "And you're one of the nicest steamers I've ever met," Diesel smiled back as he took the empty trucks away. You'll be happy to know that all the engines can now see the new trees growing strong and tall. Sometimes it is quiet, and you can hear the river flowing or a bird's wings brushing the air. But always, Henry is happy to relax here in the forest on the beautiful island of Sodor.